Hello, guys and gals, me, Mudahar, and we got some controversy to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, some video game controversy, so to speak. Now, are you like modding video games? I actually love modding video games, okay? In fact, I love modding video games so much that I actually stopped modding video games. It was a game I played called Cyberpunk 2077, you might have heard of it, and ever since the DLC came out, I've played through like 100% of the game. I played through so much of it that I decided I wanted to go and actually mod the game. So you know where I go to, like most gamers? I go to a site called nexusmods.com. Now, I've been using this site for like damn near the entirety of my YouTube career, and even then some at this point. It's a place where you have 15.8 billion downloads as of today, 694,000 mods, 61.7 million members, and of course, mods for 3,656 games. So if I want to mod games like Cyberpunk 2077, I just click that big old button right there, and I have about 15,000 mods that I can play with. Now, when I played this game so much, I started to add mods like different cars, weapons, tried to add quests, and I stopped modding the game because CD Projekt Red just updated the game so much that every time I would get an update for the game, I would just go, oh god, it's gonna break everything. And it did break everything. In fact, modding this game basically gave me some form of post-traumatic stress disorder every time I saw an update on my system. But that's not the point, okay? Obviously, this video is about the Nexus mod controversy. And at first, I was kind of wondering what this was about. And ladies and gentlemen, for anybody that doesn't know, there's a small little indie game known as Oblivion Remastered that just came out. In fact, this game is so brand new that, of course, ladies and gentlemen, it's got 510 mods. It's a remaster of a about 20-year-old video game. And for a lot of gamers who were like, man, I don't even think we might even be able to have mods for this, considering the fact that I don't think mods were even supported. But lo and behold, the gaming community put together a whole bunch of mods. Some of these mods I've installed where you can actually have more realistic looking lighting compared to the original. There's loot fixes, bug fixes. I mean, we're basically doing the thing that Bethesda's supposed to be doing, okay? But one mod in particular freaked the ever-loving hell out of Nexus mods to the point where it was removed. Now you might be wondering, what was that mod? Well, it's actually the first one in trending, body type selector. Now you might be like, whoa, why did this trigger some controversy, Muda? Well, with the mod that has 10,000 downloads, you sure as hell gave it the Streisand effect with 124,000 views, okay? I wouldn't have heard about this if it wasn't for the removal of this mod and the subsuing controversy that existed. So again, one of the things you might be noticing is, what does this mod change, Muda? So if you ever played Oblivion, and God forbid if you haven't, go to the game, start a new file, and the first thing you're going to be doing, like most RPGs, is making a character, right? So obviously you pick your character's race, all right? But of course with body type, this was the option that had kind of triggered a few people. Body type 1 and body type 2 are actually what is in the modern re-release of the game. Now, again, what this mod did was it replaced those words with female and male. Now, if you play through the remake or just the original, like Oblivion, this name, whether it be female or male or body type 1 and 2, doesn't really matter in the core context of the game. In the actual game, the characters and the entire world will still refer to you as if you picked a male or a female, whether certain genders, or not genders, but quests would be delivered to you. Depending on those genders, they would be delivered to you as if you picked male or female. So by all accounts, this was nothing more than a cosmetic selector that was designed, I guess, to make the language appropriate with modern times, okay? And that was pretty much like kind of the end of it. Now, when I see body type 1 and body type 2, personally, it kind of is a little bit confusing to me. Generally speaking, the reason so is the first time I've ever seen this, it is in a game like Elden Ring when I was making my character. And honestly, I'm just so used to seeing like a male or a female archetype body that I have to actually look between the option of 1 and 2 to see what is the male body and what is the female body, okay? That's really where it gets confusing to me. But on a real level, this takes, you know, however amount of time it may take for a character creator to do. For many people, they can be making an hour-long character creation like experience where they're putting together the most ugliest in character. For me, like most people, since I play this game in first person, or at least just me, I'll speak for myself, I usually just skip past all of this, decide what my character's class and abilities are. More importantly, then I decide what they look like, since it's a first-person game. I think anytime I played games like even most most FromSoft games, or specifically Cyberpunk 2077, like I said earlier, I just usually pick the default looking character and move alongside, okay? I don't really go into the whole character creation shit that much. I just focus mostly on the abilities. But again, that's just me. To go back to it, this was a male-female body type, and the language was something that was modded to be different. Now, in a real talk segment over here, I personally don't understand why I would ever want to install this mod. Just on a personal level, body type 1 and 2, or male or female, again, just the use of the modern body type 1 and 2 language feels kind of arbitrary in that sense, because it is just male and female. Like, I guess if you're kind of shying away from gendered language or trying to make games all the way inclusive, I think there's probably better ways to handle it, especially in a 20-year-old remake. But this mod being removed really was the reason why Streisand affected, right? Like, all of a sudden, you had just people constantly yelling about, hey, this is censorship, this is not ideological neutrality on Nexus mod, which is one of the largest haven for mods out there. And realistically, that's where the conversation jumped up to. Now again, me personally, I think most gamers probably wouldn't even bother to install this mod because you get past this whole character creator and you never see it again. But again, this mod wasn't something that was out there promoting violence or promoting hatred or promoting anything. It was people changing language back at, if you looked at the files for what the files are themselves, it's an incredibly harmless, innocuous mod. And you don't really have to install it if you don't agree with it either, right? If somehow you don't agree with the body type 1 and 2 language, right? Like, you're just ideologically not there and you're installing this mod, it's a far different mod than one that, I saw this, right? The way the controversy kind of treated this, it almost felt like people were looking at this as like, the next big crazy neo-Nazi, like, fucking hunt the LGBTQ mod or something, right? It was again, cosmetic swap on the character creator, and it got ballooned up through all games journalism into something that, involved censorship and all this other stuff that ultimately becomes a far bigger story and a far bigger topic of discussion. But yeah, I guess it achieved what it wanted to. It really twisted the nipples of, I guess, everyone talking, to the point that we're here today discussing the largest modding platform in the world. So apparently this wasn't even the only mod that was removed. Based on some discussion from what appeared to be like actual Chinese modders, even the Chinese translation of Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion had to apparently been allegedly banned. And I can't entirely confirm this myself because I haven't really seen much of this in terms of evidentiary proof. I've seen it being shared around through these screenshots, but the idea is that they actually ended up removing it because key values of gender, which was actually in the database itself, from the original 06 version of the game were male-female, and of course this was not something that was flying well with, again, it appeared to be the moderation of Nexus. So yeah, obviously, if this is true, and I don't know the Chinese language because I don't really speak Chinese, but as somebody that speaks Hindi, मुझे पता है gendered language के बारे में क्या होता है. अगर मैं औरतों से बात कर रहा हूँ तो मैं उनसे दूसरे अल्फाज से इस्तेमाल कर रहा होता हूँ, और अगर मैं आदमियों से बात कर रहा हूँ तो थोड़े से अलग अल्फाज हो रहे होते हैं. Like, there are gendered languages and differences. If you didn't understand what I said, all right, generally speaking, I just wanted to flex a little bit of my bilingualness, but speaking gendered languages and knowing things that, the way that you pronounce certain words or the way that certain genders are mentioned. English as a language is, again, very different to other languages, specifically gendered languages that I would say, like Spanish, like Hindi, like a lot of these South Asian languages, not just Hindi, but obviously Chinese at this point probably would also be dragged into it as well too, given just the brief research that I've done here. So yeah, this was ultimately a big sort of, hoopla about just, again, body type 1, body type 2, being replaced to male-female through a mod. Now, on the surface, I myself wouldn't really care to do this mod myself. Like, I would have to go through effort to just modify an experience and part of a game that I would only see for a fraction of a second at most. It does not warrant that much effort. But if somebody wants to go through that, I personally don't understand why. But on the surface and the file as a whole, I don't see what it's doing is necessarily destructive or dangerous, right? This kind of a mod doesn't promote violence. It doesn't promote any harm. It's just a mod that exists for people that want to make their game, they want to change the wording of something in there. You may not agree with it, but generally speaking, this mod wasn't necessarily designed to, I guess, escalate some level of violence, so to speak, all right? And by this mod being removed, obviously, regardless of where your stances are ideologically, it is in some ways actual censorship. And for one of the premier modding platforms like Nexus to do this, it's a very dangerous slope to go down. Now, it's not the first time Nexus has ever done this. Obviously, if you remember back when there was Starfield, another Bethesda game, the introduction character creation screen had a, pronoun selector. So you could pick he, him, she, her, they, them, and somebody made a mod where they actually fucked it up, where if they removed the pronoun selector, everyone in the game was effectively referring to the created character as a they, them pronoun person. So instead of getting rid of the pronouns, they just severely botched the mod right there. But then there were other mods that Nexus removed as well. Like, for instance, if you ever played Spider-Man, you'll probably notice that at certain parts of the map in Manhattan, there are pride flags. And when somebody had made a mod to remove them, Nexus jumped in and removed that modder from modding out pride flags from their game. And again, I have to explain, I don't understand why somebody would go through that effort. I wouldn't do it myself. Again, these are not things that bother me to the insane point, in my personal opinion, where I'm going to be downloading a mod from the internet, patching it in, and then upkeeping it as that game is constantly updated, okay? Again, even when looking at this, it's also funny too when actual companies will remove those pride flags and remove any LGBT references when it comes down to selling the game in regions like Saudi Arabia, which, again, it shows me how, careless these companies are when it comes to the values they preach, right? Obviously, I believe every gay person, every trans person, every person has a right to exist, okay? Why is it okay to spread their existence in our side of the world and not fight for it, or at least advocate for it, in any other place you're releasing the game? Obviously, money is more important. Obviously, your values are more aligned there. But yeah, it is what it is. But generally speaking, this was not the only set of mods that Nexus was getting rid of, okay? This was a history of modifications that Nexus would remove. There were certain mods like Marvel Rivals where they would remove a mod that depicted the heads of characters as specific US presidents. And of course, they wanted to, again, remove it on that front because Nexus was obviously impartial, or they were claiming to be impartial from the US political machine. Which, if that was really the case, right, if they were ideologically free, I don't think they would really need to go about and remove mods like this. So yeah, when the account got banned, one of the posts that came out from Nexus was right here on their bot. The account that posted that mod got banned because they were posting an intentionally antagonistic mod with intention to evade the rules. The mod altered the body types in the remake from 1 to 2 to male and female. While the modification itself is not inherently a problem, the intention of the author is the problem. When the user reported that they had archived the mod on a website dedicated to archiving TOS-breaking content on Nexus mods and other modding websites with a particular focus on bigotry, the author replied, "Awesome, thanks for picking up on my intentions, 07. From our file submission guidelines, this is one of the guidelines they had, files that remove identity-inducing, including pronouns from a game that has been intentionally put in place by a game developer. And I assume a lot of this extreme verboseness came from Starfield and previous games that had the stuff modded out. I think games like Baldur's Gate 3 were even targeted specifically because they had a very in-depth character creator that could go far more in-depth than whatever we're seeing with Bethesda. Now, in amongst all this, you might be like, what other mod sites exist? Now, to be honest with you, some of the mod sites that I love personally are mod sites like ModDB. Now, I've been modding for a long time. Back in the day when we were getting mods, we were getting them from all different types of online communities. ModDB is probably the place where I downloaded so many of the goofiest Grand Theft Auto mods that I've shown on my channel, entire total re-releases. I would consider this site to be a hands down million times better than whatever you're seeing in Nexus mods, just because the actual kind of mods that I want, which are actually game modifying mods, versus again your standard Gunner mod is all present over here. Not to say there's anything wrong with the Gunner mod, clearly there's a market for it. And that kind of a market was a market like DEG mods, for instance, where other mod sites started to form up because they wanted to release, a lot of these Nexus banned mods in, free, complete ownership right over here. And again, when you go to sites like DEG mods, some of the most popular mods they kind of start off by showcasing are again mods where, again, they're replacing those body type languages where instead of, again, Elden Ring, great example, they wanted to change body type A and B to male and female. And again, the further you go down into it, you'll find other things like New Newtonian New York, where a mod that replaces all the in-game's LGBT flags with the US flag in Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. And again, these are all mods that have effectively been stored, that have been removed from a lot of the big places like Nexus because of, again, the ideology and the moderation that jumped in to remove this. It's the perfect example of like what a Streisand effect really is. Like, according to DEG mods, they're looking at this and they're going, Type 1 and Type 2 Nexus mods. This mod goes against my views, but I will allow it. This mod goes against my views. Lock thread, delete, ban, ban, ban. I will just say it, broke a site rule. And again, that's really the entire mention here. It's like, obviously, if they appear to be censoring mods, sure. And you'll go to sites like Based Mods, for instance, which, again, will have mods stored onto their websites that, again, are banned from a lot of these major places. And if you look at the top mods, or at least the most recent mods, you'll find your body type mod, you'll find Hetero Henry, you'll find a lighter skin version of Yasuke, the brain rot removal. I think it's pretty understandable, like, what kind of mods end up on a lot of these based or free mod websites, right? Like, if I go to Alan Wake 2, I wonder... It's literally just like a white version of like the black character. They just like replaced it. A small test mod that changes Saga Anderson to have white skin, blonde highlights, and blue-gray eyes. So it's just literally race swapping the entire character, dude. No females out of Battlefield 5? You guys are still actually playing Battlefield 5? Come on now. Come on. The nerfed Jews and the DEI remover. Oh boy. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that I think most gamers are probably going to look at things like nerfed Jews and a lot of these mods and these lists and probably not go through the effort of installing them, or really not shed a tear if they do get removed from like mainstream websites. But yes, obviously when you have over moderation on your website, especially for mods where, again, I would say there's a bit of a difference between like nerf Jews and body type 1 to like, you know, male and female, right? When you have the over moderation, obviously that's what Nexus is worried about. You got to have a pretty relatively impartial website. And again, there's a fine line, a fine balance between it. And it's one thing where I feel like Nexus is a little bit threatened going forward. And let's read further into their responses. Now, of course, in amongst all this controversy, ladies and gentlemen, Nexus had gotten so much of it that they decided, yeah, I guess we'll bring the mod back. So yeah, the actual mod is back, body type selector. And according to the fellows over at Nexus Mods, the mod has been and likely will continue to be a source of controversy within the community. I mean, in all honesty, right? Like, this was a pretty small little inconsequential mod that honestly picked up steam because every gaming journalist wanted to talk about it. Everyone wanted to turn it into a big story. I think at some point I saw a Vice article about it. Like, is Oblivion Remastered too woke? Right-wing gamers are trying to mod out this feature. Like, the moment you try to actually have websites like this, the moment you try to bring this stuff off, again, it's like nobody would have heard about it if it wasn't for every big publication, every creator talking about it. But yeah, to give you an idea, they said that the mod was taken down not because of its content, but it was removed because of the uploader's behavior. In the comments, the uploader expressed an intent to incite drama and endorse an external site explicitly designed to host inflammatory content. This kind of behavior directly violates our community standards. We recognize that mods like this can bring sensitive discussion around gender and identity to the forefront. While these are important conversations, our platform exists to support creative expression in modding, not to serve as a battleground for broader cultural and political debates. Look, at the end of it, you kind of lose your right to kind of say that this is about just, you know, the broader, like, it was ideological that you took down the mod. Let's be honest here, okay? And now, let's say that this person did have a claim against you, right? Like, let's say that this person was here to incite drama. You really did give them an out by just effectively removing a mod that outright literally did something very small and inconsequential. Like, at one point, people want to tell you that this is a meaningless mod and it should be removed. And again, these weren't massive changes to be had. And on the other hand, they really are vehemently trying to remove this mod from existence to the point that it's now preserved forever. Not that it's some crazy intensive a mod anyways, but the actual argument, the actual, like, you know, conversation surrounding it really just blew up because of how Nexus operated. And do I think that Nexus turned this around because they actually believe in free expression? No, I think honestly the only reason Nexus turned this around was because Nexus feels like if all of a sudden their website is going to have more and more of these moderation incidents, and again, to be honest, to me, it's not that big of a deal, right? Like, I wouldn't personally install this mod. I wouldn't go through my way of doing it. But I also don't necessarily see this mod as something equivalent to, again, a mod that perpetrates, an actual, racism, transphobia, homophobia, anything of that nature, okay? If somebody is removing content from a video game or modifying it on their own game data, on their own files, right? I really don't see the actual, difference in it, right? It'd be one thing if they were just constantly throwing in, fucking swastikas all over the world of Cyrodiil, okay? And promoting, crazy conspiracy theories and crazy hatred and bigotry through it, right? But replacing, again, just body type 1 and 2 to male and female honestly wasn't that big of a deal to begin with. It wouldn't be something that I would do, but it shouldn't have been at this point where everyone had this hoopla, and now we're suddenly talking about it because it's this great discussion of what is censorship. There was censorship that happened from Nexus's point. And the greater overarching story here is if censorship keeps occurring, at Nexus, and honestly, it's really up to the entire board of people, the moderators, to decide what they allow on the site versus what they don't, it's going to threaten the, again, prominence of Nexus mods, and people might just be going to other websites, maybe to based mod sites, or maybe to ModDB, or maybe to other mod websites or forums or smaller communities like they used to be, just if it means distributing their mods without having people occasionally jumping in and removing it on their own discretion, right? It's just one of those things. I really feel like Nexus felt like their dominance was a little threatened, all right, just because of how bad discourse like this can get, and that's never good to have. But yeah, honestly, the Nexus controversy was, in my opinion, it wasn't really all that crazy, but I did learn a lot about body type 1 and body type 2 discourse that I probably could have done without. Probably could have spent that time playing Expedition 33, great JRPG. If you haven't played it, give it a try. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. What a shit show. I am out.